Well, something was up, and we just don't know what. Joining us now is Senior Consulting Fellow at Chatham House, Keir Giles. Good morning to you. What do you think happened in the last 24 hours?
Well, you mentioned just now we still don't know, and there's a lot we will still not know sometime after all of the dust has settled. We can see broadly what the course of events was and who was where, but the details of this deal that appears to have been struck between the Kremlin and Prigozhin and his Wagner group are still trickling out, and a lot of them just make no sense at all. It wasn't in either side's interest to arrive at the deal that we've been presented with and told that this is a resolution to the conflict. Prigozhin going into exile in Belarus, under what terms we don't know, because he must be now a marked man for having stood against the Kremlin. And Putin himself weakened by this, because it shows that you can have an armed gang roaming around southern Russia putting demands to the authorities, and then you get away with it. Yesterday morning, Putin was talking about this as treason, which must be stamped out. Yesterday evening, it seems, well, actually, no, it's all fine. You can all go home again. So there are a lot of unanswered questions about exactly what happened here and also what it means for the future for Russia.
What do we make of, I mean, the papers are full of speculation as to whether Putin will go, who could be the next president, all that sort of thing. Is that jumping the gun?
It is a little. Now, it's true that in the long term, of course, this puts Putin in a very shaky position, because there's been this challenge to his leadership. There's been this challenge, this solid grip on power that everybody thought he had and that he likes to portray himself as having. And, of course, it sets a precedent. If Prigozhin can do this, then others can as well. So there's no doubt that it's made things a lot more unstable in Russia. But throughout all of this, there was never a direct challenge to Putin's leadership. Prigozhin's argument was with the Ministry of Defense. He wasn't challenging the fact that Russia is waging war on Ukraine. He just wanted people to do it differently and better. He wanted people to do it his way. So there wasn't a direct confrontation between those two individuals. It was just the implications of what Prigozhin did that are really threatening for Putin.
And everything that's happened in and around Moscow and that other place, the southern city, everything that's happened, yes, it's destabilising in Russia, and it must be very upsetting for Russians wanting to know what's going on. But is it good news for Ukraine?
You would have thought so. And certainly there must have been opportunities for Ukraine to do something during this temporary destabilization and confusion within Russia. But it was all over incredibly swiftly. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Ukraine, who have proved themselves very adept at information operations, were doing a little to stoke the confusion and to exploit the opportunities. But the Prigozhin move and Wagner's move didn't actually disrupt Russian military operations against Ukraine, because that's not what they disapprove of. You heard from Robert Fox just now how they were taking over the headquarters of that operation done in Rostov-na-Donu. If you see the pictures of them going in, it was a very chummy affair. They stopped for coffee on the way and were walking in with coffee in their hands. It wasn't any kind of confrontation, because they all agree that they want to destroy Ukraine, so that's not going to change. It means that whatever the outcome of this, the threat to Ukraine and to the rest of us and to Europe is not going to go away.
But if there's 25,000 or so Wagner troops, and if they're saying they don't want to be in Ukraine anymore, doesn't that significantly weaken what the Russian army can do?
Well, first of all, we have to be really careful about the numbers. 25,000 is the figure that's being used. It's a figure that comes from Prigozhin, and that's notoriously unreliable. But you're right that there's a big question over what happens now with these people. Now, under the terms of this deal, if we're to believe what we're told, some might be absorbed into the Russian Ministry of Defense. Some might be amnestied, but you've still got a large body of relatively well-trained, heavily armed, and probably very upset people at the moment moving around southern Russia. Nobody quite knows where they are. So that is an ongoing situation which we'll see pan out over the next few days as people decide where their loyalties lie.
And these troops that we're talking about, there's no doubt, is there, that they are guilty of real appalling war crimes from what they did inside Ukraine?
Well, not just Ukraine, but they have a long history of the most horrific atrocities wherever they go. Whether it's Syria, whether it's Africa, all of the different places that Robert Fox was listing just a few minutes ago for you, they've left a trail of absolute misery and destruction between them. And some of the most appalling murders, which they don't try to conceal, they actually revel in it. And within Russia itself, this is an organization that's been given a free pass. It's been given an exemption for whatever passes for rule of law in Russia. The Kremlin gives a nod and and a wink when they carry out extrajudicial murders using sledgehammers. So, yes, this is a deeply unpleasant, murderous gang of psychopaths, and we wouldn't have wanted them anywhere near power in Russia anyway.
Why is the international community so concerned? Because there was this sense, at least for a stage yesterday, where people were saying, well, perhaps something's going to happen, Putin could fall. And you say he's still destabilised by this, but Western powers seem to enter full panic mode at this. I mean, why are they seeing this as a negative thing rather than a positive thing?
I have to say, watching this unfold over the last 48 hours, we didn't really get a sense of panic from the West. Now, everybody was watching closely because you want to know how this is going to pan out. But I don't think there was a sense that was going to be an imminent change of leadership in the Kremlin or anything as dramatic as that. Now, the noises you hear from the US, as always, is wanting to make sure who's actually in charge of Russia's nuclear weapons. But there, too, there didn't seem to be any threat of anything immediately destabilizing. It's different for Russia's neighbors, of course. You had countries like Latvia saying, well, we're a little concerned about what's going to happen. We're going to close the border to Russians now because there isn't a threat at the moment, but we don't want one to develop. But that's very different from panic. All of the panic seems to have been in Moscow, where they were digging trenches outside the city and putting armored vehicles outside government buildings.
Yes, quite a sight, wasn't it? We'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for helping us understand what on earth is going on. Keir Giles, thank you.